Welcome to Outside of the Classroom. It's your boy Tam Pham, speaker, writer, and entrepreneur. Each week, we bring together inspiring guests to help you learn useful shit, prepare you for success, and do work you love. Thanks for spending time with me today, and without further ado, let's dive on in. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Tam Pham, and welcome to Outside of the Classroom. Today we have a very special guest, and her name is Anita Wing Lee. You know, I first found out about Anita while reading a publication written by Under 30 Changemakers. Basically, a group of young, ambitious people that are changing the world, and her story is just great. You know, Anita has traveled to 21 different countries to do paid internships. Paid, yeah. And is now helping people to do the same. She has also helped numerous people find their passion and launch a successful career around it. So in this episode, we talk about how Anita found her passions, the blueprint on how to travel and get paid while doing so, why networking is not sleazy marketing, and how to do it authentically, and thoughts about dropping out of college, and so much more. So make sure to go back to the show notes at outsideoftheclassroom.com/Anita. And without further ado, let's dive onto this episode with the one and only Anita Wing Lee. Anita, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Just a quick question. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, I had coconut milk, all brand cereal mixed with raisin all brand and plum.
Very nice. Is that your standard breakfast, or is that just what you had this morning?
No, it's pretty close to my standard breakfast.
Very cool. Well, I'm very excited, Anita, to have you on the show because you have done so many cool things. You traveled to 21 different countries. You're speaking. You're helping other people do the same thing and helping people land their dream jobs. I can go on and on, but I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to my audience.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Anita Wing Lee, and today I'm a life coach, speaker, YouTuber, do all kinds of cool stuff. But I really started out when I was in university. I never imagined that I would be doing this, but I had this inkling that I knew that I wanted to work in media. And so I did the kind of traditional route, and I studied communications and media studies. And on that path, the very first internship I got after my first year was a marketing internship, which at that time was pretty much the best internship someone my age could get. I was pretty proud of myself at the time. You know, I thought I was cool stuff because I was the only first year intern. All of the other interns out of 9 were upper year students. But in that internship, I realized very quickly that I did not want to be working in an office. I could see the other people, you know, who had been there, even if it was just for 5 years. They seemed to have lost that spark in their eyes, and they were sitting in an office in the middle of the summer, and I didn't want any of that. And at the same time, part of that marketing internship, because it was with a marketing agency, I was a promo rep representing different brands. And as a part of that, I had a 2-week stint where I was in hardware stores selling a vacuum cleaner. LG had just come out with a new vacuum cleaner, and I happened to get this assignment. So I was in these hardware stores around the city, standing there with this vacuum cleaner, and I had a little piece of carpet that I would throw dirt on and then vacuum it back up. Throw dirt on and vacuum it back up. And that's what I did for 8 hours a day for 2 weeks.
Wow, that's very luxurious.
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. And while I'm big on doing the best with where you are at in life, you know, I still did my best, but I knew I wanted to do something different the following summer. And so I started to explore my options for traveling, because I knew that if, you know, this corporate world, the traditional media, if this is what it led me to, I needed to do something different. Mm-hmm. And like any good 20-something, the only thing I knew that would be cool and fun to do was to travel. So the following summer, I ended up going to Italy to travel. And that opened up my eyes, because that was the first time I met other people, 20-somethings, who had completely ditched the corporate career, ditched trying to get a job at home, where they commuted to work, and they were traveling the world teaching English. And some of those people, and this is almost 5 years now, some of those people are still traveling the world teaching English. And so that was really cool to me at the time because I didn't know anyone else back home who was doing that. Everyone else was just like, go to school, get a job, go to school, get a job, and repeat. I had to come back to continue my studies in university though, and I ended up switching to a business school program because I thought it would be more practical. And it was another incident of like, okay, I really do not belong here. I just knew I wasn't meant to be wearing a suit for my career in the rest of my life. So I was definitely the misfit at business school, but I'm grateful for that experience because that was where I really learned how to network. And I had to learn how to network really out of necessity because all the companies that came to my business school, which is one of the top ones in Canada, they were all big companies. They were big banks, consulting firms, and I didn't want anything to do with them. So I decided at the time I wanted to work in documentary film, and I wanted to do something where I could tell stories that inspired people. And so I put myself out there and I started connecting with filmmakers and producers. And in a very short period of time, I ended up building this huge network within the film and television industry in the city that I lived in Toronto. And through a series of events, through networking, I ended up not working in film. I ended up still doing something I really wanted to, which was on a social entrepreneurship project and that took me to Russia. And then that also took me to East Africa. And then through networking, I was able to spend the rest of my 3 months of my summer in East Africa. And so I still had to go back to business school though. And then, and this is one of those times where like every summer I would think to myself, okay, is this when I get a normal job? Kind of like peeking around the corner, like, but then the following summer I ended up going back to East Africa, to Rwanda this time, to help set up a social enterprise, which is a business with a social mission there. And so by the time I finished university, I had been to 21 countries. I had spent 3 consecutive summers traveling abroad, doing really interesting and awesome projects abroad, pretty much exactly what I would have wanted to be doing. And I got all of those internships through networking and through putting myself out there. And I realized that this skill is so important, and your ability to communicate your passion and put yourself out there. I realized that was what set me apart, and that's what allowed me to have these incredible experiences in my early 20s that really opened up my mind. And so I started to build an online business. And the first thing that I wanted to put out there to help people was to show them how to network. Because that was what really changed my life. And so I created this, my first program, Zero to Network. And that was really like the launch pad for my business. That was what allowed me to reach people all around the world now, whether it's through coaching or through my online program, or even just through my content, inspiring them and giving them helpful advice and tips so that they can really create their own dream career, whether it's finding a job or starting a business, or freelancing for a while. Once you're equipped with knowing how to network and confident in yourself so that you can put yourself out there, that's when so many doors are going to open for you, no matter what industry you want to work in or no matter what it is that you want to do.
Most definitely. Wow, you just dropped so much about traveling, about shifting, careers and networking. And I want to touch more upon networking. But before I do, I just noticed that you went through so many different shifts. You said you wanted to do communications, and then you changed into film, and then you started to travel and teach English. Like, did you feel lost while in college, or did you feel like you had this all kind of planned out, to do the things that you're doing today?
I definitely did not have it planned out. Every summer I would come back and I'd be like, whoa, I just had these incredible, mind-blowing experiences in Africa, for example. How did that happen? But I will tell you that there was a through line that helped me know that helped me steer. I didn't always know exactly where I was going, but I knew the direction that I wanted to move in.
Mm.
And so I mentioned before that I wanted to work in media, and that was because at an early age, I started to feel the pressure from media to look a certain way, and I thought that working in media, so traditional media like film, television, radio, all of which I tried in university, I thought that I just knew that media was the way that you could put positive messages out into the world. And that was what I wanted to do. I didn't know what exactly that would look like. I didn't know that I would end up starting an online business and doing, podcasts like this instead of traditional radio. But that was what helped me. So even though there were times where I was, suddenly it's like, okay, actually, I don't want to work in traditional radio. I don't want to work in traditional TV. I still had that inkling of like, I know I want to reach large numbers of people. I know I want to put inspiring content out there. I know I want to grow as a person. And so I would follow that. And then that was what at first led me to travel. And so the first thing as I mentioned, it was teaching English. It had nothing to do with media, but that was what got me to travel. And then like the steps after that, it got closer and closer to what it was I wanted to do. So it's almost like a funnel. Like I had a really vague idea of the direction that I wanted to go. And then I kept like shifting within that. But and I would encourage anyone watching this to always think about what's your bigger purpose in life? What's your mission? What do you feel like? What would like really excite you to do? And then go after that. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to see sort of like the next thing to do and then do that. And it will lead to where you want to go.
I really love that last line you said. You don't have to see the whole staircase, but just take the next step towards that direction.
Mm-hmm.
So very cool. I work with many different young adults about this, but I'm curious to hear your approach on helping people how to find that mission or how to find whatever that excites them. So say if there's a 21-year-old who's listening to this and doesn't really have a clear sense of direction in their life, what do you have any tips or suggestions on what their next step in that staircase would be?
Yes. So I think the best thing I can do first is just give an example from my own life,
Sure.
and show how I sort of uncovered my passion, and it's how I still continue to uncover my journey and where I want to go. So there, I think one big marker is what inspired you or what excited you or what you did naturally when you were younger. Because I think we had fewer filters when we were young. So we would just dream and say we wanted to do stuff. And, sometimes parents or adults would be like, yeah, that's just, that's so cute. And they wouldn't really take it seriously. But I've come to realize that those early inklings that you had for what you wanted to do are they're the real thing. So I'll give you an example. One of my first recollections of what I wanted to be when I grew up was I wanted to be a missionary. So I wanted to travel around the world and tell people good news. And then I sort of grew out of that, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then in grade 6, I remember the first time I heard about being a journalist. It was like right away, oh, I want to be a journalist. Realizing that people could get paid to travel and go on epic adventures and tell stories about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, so I learned different types of media, and then I ended up going to a media studies program. And then I realized I didn't want to work in journalism though, because traditional journalism is dead really.
Yeah.
So then I decided I want to be a filmmaker, and it was the same reason. I want to travel and tell positive stories. And then eventually I dropped that, and I was like, no, I'm going to be a social entrepreneur. But even for myself, over the last year, as I've been building up my business, I realized I've like purposely taken the time to look back on the things that I used to want to do when I was a kid. And now I can really connect the dots. And that's how I know that I'm on the right path now, because even though the form is different, so right now, I coach people online and I create content online. Even though that form is different, the content, my original mission was still the same. And so I know for everyone listening, there's definitely something in your childhood. And I know that if you spend that time to really explore and dig deep, whether it's journaling, meditating, or even asking your parents what it was that you wanted to be when you were young. I guarantee that in there are the seeds of what it is that you would be passionate about now. And I'll give it like another example is like I realized that when I was young, I wanted to like I would write these little books, like lined paper, fold them into quarters, and like fill them up, and then give them to my parents. And
Interesting.
so
Wait, what was the books about?
I honestly don't remember. But now, because now I'm working on my first book, and obviously I do a lot of writing online as well. I can see that that same seed of the writing, because sometimes it's easy to discount that, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
writing's not practical. I can't make money writing. But actually, no, that's what I did when I was a kid. So it's still a part of me, and it's part of what I'm meant to be doing. Um,
That's yeah. Go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry. Finish your
Well,
thought.
so that's my story, but I'll add a quick thing for anyone who's like, okay, no, I really had no idea what to do when I was a kid. The other thing is like right now, even in your own life, if you don't need to try to figure everything out. You can also just follow what it is that inspires you or excites you or whatever it is that you're curious about. I think when you spend time actually engaging in that activity or learning about it, that is also going to open doors for eventually turning it into a career.
Most definitely. And I can definitely agree with you. When I was a kid, I've always loved reading and writing short stories to my class. I felt like I was on the spotlight and while everyone was listening to me read my short story. But that I didn't really connect the dots until today, now that I write every day, that wow, I used to love to do that when I was a kid, except I hated it throughout high school because we had to write essays and you know, and like bibliographies and stuff like that about whatever, but now I love writing and speaking, but that really translated to what I really loved in my childhood. And I also want to touch upon the point where you don't have to always know the whole stairway, the whole staircase. I had a very similar story to you when I was stuck in my own cubicle, and I said I don't want. It was almost summertime, and my supervisor was like, "Yeah, in the summertime it's gonna be very chill here," and I said, "This is not the lifestyle I want." And I definitely changed path, and I also agree. No matter what kind of medium is out there to convey your message, it's always about the content. It's always about that sense of direction you have within yourself. So I really, really loved how you touched upon that part. Just to segue into traveling, you said you've been to 21 different countries, and um, for I'm kind of skeptical. Did you get paid to travel, or was it like you pay them and then you get the experience, and is it like a you know s- 0-0
Yeah, of
loss?
course. Yeah, so it was a mixed bag for sure. I'll tell you one thing I never did.
Sure.
And if some people want to pay to volunteer, that's their prerogative. But one thing that I never did was I never paid to volunteer.
Mm.
So so all of my travels though they were either so some of them were paid, like I actually got paid to do it, so like some of them I had my flights covered because organizations donated points and that covered my flights, and then some of the countries, like I was going to one country and I was paid for that, for example, but as a part of that trip I also got to visit other countries. So whereas like some of those countries might have been excursions, the whole trip ended up being paid for or covered, because I was paid for part of the work that I did there. So it is a mix, and every summer was a little bit different. Some summers I made more than others. Some summers I just broke even. But one of the things that I'm really passionate about now is like if some people want to travel, yes, there are those volunteer organizations where you can pay and then, or you fundraise and then they take you where you want to go. But I got to visit places like East Africa, and without doing the traditional volunteer trips, and all of that was through networking, through talking to people about what I was passionate about, and then opportunities would open up, whether it was a job opportunity or whether it was a nonprofit opportunity and it was something funded by the government. So uh, so everyone, even like the clients that I work with now, some of them do want to go and teach. Some of them do want to go and volunteer, but some of them actually want jobs too. And so everyone along the spectrum, I'm able to help them so that they can travel and get paid for it.
Wow, that's really, really cool to get paid and travel. That's like the dream come true, essentially, or in my eyes at least. But you talk a lot about networking and how networking opened doors for you. But when most people hear networking, they hear networking, sleazy marketing, here's my business card, take it, and it's all like want. Here, help me out. When you think about networking, can you like demystify some of the stigmas of the word networking?
Yes, and you're very right that is how a lot of people still think about it. And if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have been the last person to be an expert or to be talking about networking. But it's really because now I know that networking is just about building genuine, authentic connections with people that you admire, people that you want to work for, people that inspire you. That's it. It's just about building those connections. And some of those people will become your mentors, some of them might become your friends even, and some of them, might just be people in your network, just like acquaintances. But if I were to sum it up, like I would even take the word networking out, but I can't because that's the word most people use. But like for me, it's really just about building those genuine connections. And a big piece of it, I think, is like people get tripped up because they think that, oh, someone is higher up than me, so I can't contact them or I can't access them. But I really work with all my clients to show them different ways that you can just reach out to people, whether it's online, email, or through coffee meetings or through networking events and conferences. And I always tell them to remember that people are still humans. Like everyone still has to eat breakfast. Everyone still gets stuck in traffic sometimes. Everyone still has an email address, things like that. So I think when you can keep that perspective, remembering that everyone, even celebrities, like, even like podcasters, because I guarantee there will be people who look up to you.
Yes, I
Um,
have an email address, everyone.
yeah. And it's like, people are accessible. Yes, some people might have more gatekeepers if they've been around a little bit longer, but um, you don't have to go right for them if you don't want to. You can start and you will find your way to the people that you want to connect with. Because at the end of the day, they're all human. And when you show up consistently, without trying to be sleazy or markety too,
Mhm.
you just show up as your authentic self. You genuinely express how grateful you are for their work. That's one of the easiest ways to start marketing. Just tell people how grateful you are.
Right.
Then you're able to build up these genuine, authentic connections with people because they see you as a person too. They don't see you as like, this youngster grappling for an intern position.
Definitely. Can I give you a quick challenge?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. So say there is a 19-year-old student in university who wants to go to East Africa to travel and get paid. And you talk about the importance of networking. What can that person do today or maybe in the next week to help them get towards that next step in that staircase?
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so the first thing I think would be to get clear on what exactly you want to do when you go to East Africa. Because that's going to help you narrow down what organizations and what kind of people to start talking to. For me, it was social enterprise. I wanted to work with businesses with a social mission. So whatever, whether it's like design, science, art, whatever field it is, get clear on what it is you want to actually do when you get there. And then the second thing is once you're clear on that, then you can start building a list of organizations that are doing what it is that you love. So
Mm.
let's say, for example, if you're a science student and you want to go and work with hospitals in East Africa, well, then start compiling a list of, because I guarantee you there are probably hundreds of organizations that do something like this. And, Google is your best friend here. We have access to way more resources than we realize. But start getting the names of some of those organizations. And some might be really big, some might be really small. And then um, and then the next thing I would do is to start emailing some of them. And so this is where, kind of the art of writing emails come in. But if I could just give a quick tip, it's just write from your heart. Like, don't write them an essay. I would say like 3 short paragraphs, but briefly, and maybe in like 2 or 3 sentences, explain who you are, what you have to offer, and what it is what it is that you have to offer them, and how you could potentially help. And so start emailing some of those organizations, and
Yeah, it's a great start.
yeah, and there's a saying that if you're willing to ask 1,000 people, you can do anything you want in the world.
I
Which is
love it.
probably like really true. I don't know if I've probably sent 1,000 emails, but so some of those organizations will respond and some won't. But I guarantee you that if you send out enough emails, some people will respond, and they'll want to know more about you. And that gets the ball rolling. And just like that, you've built connections with people at organizations who are doing things that you believe in and that you love, who now know you. And they obviously are interested in you, and you can start building that relationship. And it might not be that exact person that leads to the internship, but I guarantee that once you start the conversation, doors will open up.
Very good. I love how you're working backwards. Like you're reverse engineering how to get X by working like step one, step two, step three. Very, very concise. I'm very curious, just curious myself. You traveled to so many different countries and you kind of had more clarity on what you wanted to do. But why did you keep wanting to go back to university? You said you always had to keep going back to business school and just finish up that degree. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about college.
Yeah, I love this question. No one has ever asked me this, which is
I'm glad.
I'm surprised that no one has actually. Actually, when I was in university, there were many times where I was like, I wish I could be one of those people who like has that giant idea, and then that idea will carry me through, and I can quit school and just start my life already, instead of
Start my life.
yeah, instead of plugging away at school, like, because sometimes I really felt like I was wasting my time because I was doing quote unquote fake work just so I could get marks. But everyone has their own journey, and for me it was like I never had that Bill Gates idea or Mark Zuckerberg where I could quit school and just start up this giant business. I think everyone has their own threshold for how much uncertainty they're willing to take, and maybe how much uncertainty their parents are willing to take. Because let's face it, our parents play a big role into whether or not we go to college and whether or not we stay in. Um, so for me, my parents, would not have, unless I could even prove to myself that I would be okay, dropping out and doing my own thing, then then maybe they would have let me. But I wasn't even fully comfortable with that. So I think everyone really does have their own path. And if you feel like college is really not the environment for you, like one of my best friends, Tara Byrne, who started Under 30 Changemakers, she never
Ooh,
went to
Tara.
college. Yeah, you know her. And she never went to college, and she's a superstar. And I'm, always amazed at what she does. But not everyone can do that. Everyone has kind of their own process of growing. Like, for example, I didn't even consider myself an entrepreneur or imagine myself starting my own business until um, probably my last year of university. And then I started to see that, wait, like I could do this. But so I think everyone has their own journey, and you have to don't be afraid to push yourself. So this is what I did do. Even though every summer, even though every fall I went back to school, every time I went back, I also put less focus on school and more focus on what I wanted to be doing. So I started building up a blog. I started learning about online businesses. I started learning. I started spending a lot more time learning about stuff that I was interested in outside of school.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a big thing, is like, even if you do feel like you need the container of school, because there's a lot of growth that's going to happen, but you're not sure if it's like the right thing for you, before instead of just dropping out and wandering for a couple months, wondering what it is that you're supposed to be doing, you can still use that time in college to spend a lot of time and energy doing things that excite you.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that as well. Everyone has their own path, and you can't. Who are you to say, you're doing like something wrong but not going to college, or you're going to college, you should drop out. No one has the authority to say that, and I love Tara. And everyone has their own path, so I definitely agree. I just want to wrap this up with a couple of quick rapid fire questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. So, going back in your journey, is there anything that you would want to change about yourself, about your experiences?
Yeah, so I'm big on, I think, people honoring their own journey just because there's so many of us. Like online, it's so easy to compare and be like, oh, I wish I was further ahead. I wish I started that earlier. So that would be the first thing I would say. But if I were to do anything differently, I think I would have started reading earlier. I would have started spending, it's probably, my second or third year in university, I started really exploring and spending a lot more time and energy doing the things that I wanted to do as opposed to just doing what was presented to me in school. So I think having, almost feeding your own curiosity, spending time learning things outside of school, reading books, that was a big launch pad for me. Just like realizing there were other people in the world who were doing things differently. So I think the sooner that you fill your mind with people who are doing stuff that inspires you, and listening to your podcast is like a great way to introduce yourself to tons of new people who are doing cool things. I think I wish I would have started doing that earlier.
Awesome. Any resource that you would recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, so
Very quick.
Okay, so I have a 3-part video series called How to Network to Land Any Dream Gig on my website, anitawingley.com. That will help anyone.
Awesome. What is the best thing that you've bought under $100?
Oh, my yoga mat.
Yoga mat? Is it special or is it just a yoga mat?
It's just a yoga mat for now, but it's my lifesaver.
Nice. And what is one last piece of advice that you would want to give to all of our listeners today?
I think my big piece of advice would be to don't be afraid to carve your own path. Really, focus on carving your own path, not on following anyone else's.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anita. I really appreciate you being on the show. Where can we find you?
You can find me at anitawingley.com. That's Anita, ANITAWINGLEE.com. There's tons of resources and free e-guides and stuff there for you.
Awesome. AnitaWingley.com, everyone. Thank you for listening today to Outside of the Classroom, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Anita.
Thanks, Tim.
And there you have it. Thanks for joining me today on the Outside of the Classroom podcast. Make sure to go back to the show notes at www.outsideoftheclassroom.com/Anita to see all the resources we talked about today. Hope this was helpful, and I really hope is that you use what you've learned and take action. Again, all the resources can be found at www.outsideoftheclassroom.com/Anita, and talk to you later. Stay awesome.